It's now a pleasure and an honor to introduce someone I consider a friend as well as a partner also of the Institute for Cultural Diplomacy, Mr. Csaba Tabajdi, member of the European Parliament. Mr. Tabajdi is a member of the European Parliament from Hungary and a member of the EP Committee on Agriculture and Rural Developments, the Committee on Petitions, and the Delegation for Relations with the People's Republic of China. He holds a degree in economics and philosophy, and he has served as administrator in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Hungary and as the culture attaché at the Hungarian Embassy in Moscow. He has worked as a foreign policy analyst and has published widely on the issues of European identity as well as European minority rights. And in particular, I think he's someone typical of many of his Hungarian counterparts who really sees also the impact that culture can have. We were discussing earlier today how what's really exceptional with Hungary is when one looks at the embassy in Berlin or much of the activities around the world. Very often culture is in the forefront. And I was saying when I first arrived in Berlin, the most active cultural attaché by far was actually the Hungarian cultural attaché. So maybe that's something also special about Hungary and Hungarian foreign policy. The topic that he has chosen today is the mutual understanding of peoples as a prerequisite of European solidarity. Please join me in a very, very warm welcome for Mr. Csaba Tabajdi. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I would like to thank for the invitation. Really, it is in my life, I've dealt for several decades with the cultural diplomacy. As Mark said just now, I was cultural attaché. I have been worked for 7 years in Moscow, and I wrote my PhD thesis about the cultural relationship, cultural interaction, cultural presence, one country in another country, and really it is a very important topic. Very important topic. But concerning the EU and the EU diplomacy, generally the cultural diplomacy is playing a very limited, restrictive role. If you compare the different countries of the European Union, and if you look at even the different countries, there are some countries, France, UK, Germany, Italy, and some countries concentrate its diplomatic activity even on the cultural field too. But if you look at on the EU level, if you look at the activity of the new service or before that the DG enlargement or DG relax, it means Directorate General for International Relations, the cultural aspect plays a very, very limited role. And it is a very big problem in my eyes because I see a big problem even inside of European Union. We don't know enough well each other. There is a lack appropriate information, who are the Danish people, who are the Portuguese people, what is the main factor of the Swedish identity, or what are the main elements of the Czech identity. We don't know enough well each other, and I think so the cultural diplomacy inside the European Union is extremely important because we can witness a lot of problems in the dialogue between even the members of European Parliament. We are every week we are spending 4 days together. We know relatively well each other. It is not the case with the member states because they meet in the council once a month. But sometimes we can see some elements of misunderstanding. Look at how at present day in Greece, sometimes you can see in Nazi German uniform Angela Merkel because of the debt crisis. Or sometimes in the German press, you can read articles in Berlin and the German press that the Greek or Mediterranean countries' people are lazy. There are even inside the European Union deep prejudices, over several decades of the existence of European Union, there is a lack of knowledge. Why the cultural diplomacy is so important? Because without a cultural diplomacy, in not that sense, not in a restrictive sense, in a large sense of the culture, extremely important. Culture, it doesn't, we cannot restrict culture, the arts, literature, etc., etc. It is only the top. The culture, it is a horizontally shows the way of the life in every aspect. If I were Scandinavian, in the cultural diplomacy, if I were Swedish or Finnish or Danish, in the cultural diplomacy, I would concentrate to showing the Scandinavian Puritanism based on the Protestant Puritanism. If you compare, for example, the difference between the rich and the poor, the smallest difference, the smallest gap all over the Europe in the Scandinavian countries. It means in the representation, in the presentation of the country image, we must show not only the high achievements of the culture, but in a very broad sense. And I think so the cultural diplomacy can show the identity of the people, of the countries, of the nations. And country and the nation, it is not the same. The majority of European countries in European Union, perhaps only Portugal, monoethnic, all other member states are multicultural, multinational, multilinguistic countries with autochthonous traditional national minorities, or Spain with different regions and immigrant minority communities. If we speak about the European identity, it is not an American type melting pot, not at all. And I hope it will be never. It is a big puzzle of the peoples and several regional and minority cultures, and a very special type of synthesis must be. But at present day, I don't think so that the European identity, it exists. I don't think so. I have a European identity, of course. When we visited China with a delegation or United States, it was clear for us. We have a very clear European identity. But for us, here in the European Parliament, they put all the time the question, what do you represent here, Mr. Tabajdi? Hungarian national interests, interests of European social democratic political family, or European interests? And the question is a very legitimate one, but at the same time, I must represent Hungarian interests, because here there are 22 MEPs, only 22 Hungarian MEPs can represent and defend and protect the Hungarian national interests, but there are other 730 MEPs here we are not able never to protect and represent our national interests without the coalition, we should convince our colleagues, mainly in political family, and we should convince the majority of the parliament. And here all the time we represent at the same time pan-European interests, because the final result of the votes here in 95%, it is a compromise between the different political groups and between 27 member states. Even the big Germany is not able here in European Parliament to achieve its own national interests without harmonization. At present day, look like there is a German Europe because of leadership of Germany and France in the presence handling of crisis management process. But it is only the surface. If Merkel and Sarkozy has a decision between them, the final decision never will be the same. It will be changed all the time under a long process of dialogue and conversation and debate, harsh debates, and the final results will become different. Why is so important for us to understand better each other, much better than present stage? Sometimes I am a feeling that my colleagues don't have enough empathy vis-à-vis towards our Greek colleagues. For the Greek present identity, the collapse of a state because of bad policy of political elite, right-wing, left-wing together, they failed, they bankrupted a whole country. Really, it is a real national tragedy. And sometimes we don't have enough empathy towards the Greek citizens at present stage. Why so important to know much better the identity, the feeling, the fears of other peoples, other nations, other member states here in the European Parliament? Because for me, for a Hungarian perhaps, it is easier to understand because I am from a less developed region of the European Union. And over these 7 years, we had to fight, and we have to fight for the equal treatment. Because at the beginning, after the enlargement, there were a lot of prejudices vis-à-vis towards the newcomers, the new member states, whether you have in your country color television, etc., etc. Really, it is not a joke. It is not a joke. There were a lot of prejudices. And there are a lot to do in the field of cultural diplomacy, because the best way of decreasing the mistrust, the misunderstanding, to know the identity, the national character, the interest, the feelings of other member states, of other countries. The culture, it is not a community competence. It is a national competence. There are some good initiatives. It was the 2008, it was the Day of Intercultural Dialogue. But the impact is very, very restrictive, very small. And I don't know that Marietje Schaake was here, participated in the debate. She had an excellent report. In this case, do you know, she wanted to have a brand Europe. I think so she spoke about that. I have a plan, an initiative to organize a permanent dialogue about the national identity, about the identity of France, Austria, because Austrian identity, it is not so simple. It is not a single identity, because the identity of the Tyrolean identity completely different than the identity in Burgenland in Austria. To organize a permanent forum to discuss who are the Danish people, what are the roots, what are the common and their history with the Germans, with Norwegians, with the Swedish people, what is the language, what is their language, what are the interactions with the other Celtic Scandinavian languages. We in Europe at present stage don't deal with the comparison, comparative history. We must have known very well what are the commons in the history of Portugal and Hungary, who are relatively far historically, geographically, but we are peripheric to some extent on Portugal and Hungary. We should make a comparative study, comparative books, not long historical books, not, for showing what are the relations, interactions between Hungarians and Slovaks. Why for Slovak friends, Hungary and Hungarian people sometimes is so threatening because of historical roots. We had a common kingdom where the Slovaks were second-ranked citizens for a long time. Or other issues, what are the contacts, what are the fields of cooperation between peoples, different peoples, and what were the clashes and conflicts? Polish-German relationship, not so easy historically, not at all, very complicated. If we don't know very well Estonian, Russian, Latvian, Lithuanian, Polish, Lithuanian, Russian relations, in this case, we won't be able to understand why the reaction of my colleagues on that parliamentary resolution completely different. And yes, we should write a common history of Europe. We should show together the achievements, European achievements, and it would be very desirable on regional level. I dreamt all the time to show, for example, the arts, the final arts at the end of 19th century, modern, Jugendstil, Art Nouveau, for the whole Central Europe, from Prague to Brasov, who is in Romania, because a lot of similarities, and there are differences too. Or to sit, or to for example, Henri Rousseau-Douanier, who is a French, very famous painter. It was a Hungarian painter, that time Csontváry, or Čiurlionis in Lithuania. What are the make comparative exhibitions, and not in that field. What the Germans minority, what was the role the Germans minority all over in Europe, in Poland, in Baltic states, in Hungary, in Serbia, in Transylvania, in Romania, or what was the modernization role of the Jewish minority in Central Europe, for example. I think so. the cultural diplomacy, to show the contrasts, to show the comparisons, and to try to show even the unity in diversity. I don't think so. It would be desirable to have a unified European culture, not at all. But this puzzle, European culture, hasn't been put on the place. We don't know enough well, and sometimes we know even badly each other. It is a big problem in decision-making process between the nations and the reconciliation under the German-French model we should make at one day between Hungary and Slovakia, Romania and Hungary, with a common gesture for apologizing from both sides, because only in that way we can construct a peaceful, stable, and dynamic and successful Europe. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tabajdi. We very much appreciate that. Questions and comments? I see a number of them. Let's start maybe in the front, and we'll move to the back, please.
Hello, thank you for inspiring ideas. My name is Romana, I'm from Romania, and you're talking about the problem of not knowing each other. Should we talk about the relationship between the members of the European Parliament with their citizens, or with the citizens they represent? And can we talk about quasi-ignorance of the citizens as a cause for this problem of not knowing each other? Thank you.
I know you need to catch a flight soon, so should we take a few questions together in the name of time? Okay, just next door, yeah?
Hi, my name is Eric Mullengraf. I'm an American living in Prague, and I wondered, as a national politician, you would obviously represent Hungarians in Hungary, but at the European Parliament, do you consider that you're representing the Hungarians in Slovakia as well as the Hungarians all over the European Union?
Excellent, and then third question was here, yes? Okay.
My name is Ursula. I'm a Polish participant here. And I would like to ask you about your...
From which country?
Poland.
Poland?
Poland, yes.
Dzień dobry.
Well, I would like to ask for your opinion and a comment, maybe some advice, actually, on the following issue. Your lecture is about mutual understanding of peoples in Europe, various aspects of this. And for example, Poland currently has problems with Lithuania concerning Polish minority and the right of the Polish people having lived there for generations to use their own language and not be disadvantaged because of that. Could you please tell me how culture could, soft power method, cultural diplomacy, how it could be used to solve this problem? It's also present in other countries, like the Baltic countries, with Russian minorities, etc. as well. Thank you.
Please, Mr. Tabajdi, if you could respond.
Thank you very much, mulțumesc, for your question. I never thought 20 years ago, very openly, before the transition, that it can be a so big progress between Romania and Hungary for dismantling, or not dismantling, because completely we haven't dismantled some feelings, but we are on the way for a historical reconciliation. That fact that the party of Hungarian community living in Romania, in the Romanian government, the prime minister is Hungarian, and it is not first time. Even that time they were in opposition, and the Social Democrats, Mr. Nastase was prime minister. It was a progress and good cooperation. And I think so it is a normal, only normal thing. Normal citizen in Europe won't change the borders, not the whole solution to guarantee the rights of minorities in that country in which they live. And I think so that the MEPs from Romania must represent the interest of the Hungarian community living there. But sometimes the cooperation here is better with the Romanians than the right-wing Hungarian ruling party representatives. Because when the Deputy Prime Minister of Romania had a contribution here about the identity, national identity in Europe, former Prime Minister Mr. Stolojan and the Romanian members of the parliament participated in the lectures, but Hungarian right-wing coalition from the same party family didn't participate in it. It was a small remark. Concerning the citizens, yes, we have a lot to do. I have a dream. In France, during my holidays, at a petrol station, I found a booklet. Unfortunately, everything what is important, not in Brussels, in Budapest, and sometimes what is important in Brussels, not in Budapest, because we as MEPs are, as a modern Romani people, as travelers. In 2 hours, my flight to home, because we arrive on Monday and we are traveling on Thursday or Friday morning. And there is a small book. It is not a book. For the children, for the teenager, for when they are traveling from Nizza to Paris, they can read it. Who is Jesus Christ? Who is the Protestantism? What is the Islam? Who are the Germans? And I have a dream, because the citizens will not read books, big books, about what were the good period between Hungary and Romania, what were the clashes and conflicts, what is our different opinion about the same historical event. They won't read such a big book. It is not so big book. But for the citizens, and it is a very, very important, because it is not enough, the reconciliation, only on the level of political elites. Without the reconciliation, political elites, it is not possible, but it is indispensable, necessary, but not sufficient. And I agree, if I understood well your question, we should make the historical reconciliation on the level of citizens. Why, for example, I regret there is not enough financial resources to send children, Romanian children, to Hungary and Hungarian children to Romania, not to Transylvania. Hungarian children to Romanian villages and towns. Exchange of children. It is very, very important element, more important than a big exhibition in museum in Bucharest. Not. I think so. It is necessary. It is important. But on the level of citizens, it's very important. Partially, I answered to your question. Yes, firstly, it is the duty, task of MEPs from Romania who were elected under the list of Hungarian party. But I think so, not minority should protect the interest of minorities, the majority representatives too. Why we made a so big progress in Romania over 20 years? Because the Romanian majority political elite understood why we deal with these nationalistic issues when we must modernize our countries. We should solve the problems of healthcare system, pension system during the transition. Of course, we have some historical, how can I say, different views, but it doesn't hamper a normal cooperation. Here in the European Parliament, I am very proud of that. In my political family, European Social Democratic Socialist family, I organized so-called Visegrad plus cooperation. New member states, not Malta and Cyprus, because they are completely different situation. Even when we had a debate with my Slovak colleagues concerning a language law restricting the rights of Hungarian minority community living in Slovakia, even that time we had a very good cooperation when we have been fought for the equal treatment here, because we are not equal. Sometimes the new member states, we should fight for them, because the old member states sometimes tried, even are trying, not to treat us equally, and we should fight for it. We should fight our interests. When I am speaking about I am fighting for the Hungarian interests, in the majority, 90%, 95%, these interests are the same of my Romanian, Slovak, Czech colleagues, Polish colleagues. And without this coalition, we weren't able to achieve some results in the equal treatment. Of course, as a Hungarian MEP, if it is necessary, I am fighting for the rights of Hungarian minority living in neighboring countries, but not only Hungarian minority. I have been for 5 years, and from January I will be once again the president of Intergroup for Traditional National Minorities, Constitutional Regions. It means Spain, and regional languages. And I am fighting for all minority rights, because all my life I dealt with two big issues, cultural diplomacy and minority rights. I was state secretary responsible for this, and I am fighting for the Polish minority in Lithuania. And I have some conflict with my very good friend, former minister Justas Paleckis, because in principle I see some real problems concerning the Polish minority living in Lithuania. I know sometimes the minority representatives can be radical, in Romania too. Everywhere there are radicals. My duty is to find a balance between the majority and minority interests. When I prepared my report, which was adopted in the Council of Europe about the Roma in Europe, 2002, Parliamentary Assembly of Council of Europe, legal situation of Roma, I had a very important sentence which was adopted. There is a mutual but asymmetric responsibility between majority and minority. Majority all the time has much more responsibility for solving the minority issues, because the majority is richer, has more political influence, media access, etc. But minority is important too, because minority should adapt to the majority too. It is a mutual adaptation process, not easy. Look at the immigrants, the problems of Muslims in Western Europe. It is one of the biggest challenges for Europe. Why the Chinese minority is able, generally in Western Europe, to be to be integrated into society. Why there are some problems? Some Muslim, not every Muslim, not at all. Jesus Christ, no. Some Muslim groups. Why there is a problem? Why there is a clash of religions, clash of civilization as Huntington? That time when I read first time Huntington, I thought he's an exaggeration, not exaggeration. Yes, Poland, in Lithuania, yes, are real problems, but there are exaggerated, how can I say, requests too. I was informed 2 days ago by a Polish member of European Parliament, and I am very highly appreciate her opinion, because she said to me, not a Lithuanian, that it was not a normal situation that finished the secondary school without knowledge the majority language, the Lithuanian language. It is not not a normal thing. But now there is an impatience on behalf of Lithuanian authorities, because this situation must have been changed, of course. But step by step, we in a dialogue with the representatives of minority. Yes, unfortunately, there are problems, and I know the Lithuanian-Polish bilateral relations are so complicated that Hungarian-Romanian relationship, Vilna, Vilnius, Mickiewicz, whose poet is Mickiewicz, Lithuanian or Polish poet? Sorry, I know who is Mickiewicz, but there are debates in this field. There is no more questions. Thank you very much for your attention at a very late hour. And I think so, there is a very important thing. We should speak openly about these real problems. Real problems. They are real problems in Europe, real challenges in this field, mainly related to the immigrant minorities. No one European document deals with the rights of immigrant new minorities in Europe, because it is a delicate issue, very sensitive issue, but the problems exist, and we should deal with it. The politicians, decision makers cannot avoid even the most sensitive issue, because later the effect can be disastrous. Look at the Greek crisis, the irresponsibility of the whole Greek political elite, not the Greek people. It is very important to differentiate between the responsibility of a government or even all political elite and the people and the nations. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tabajdi. In particular, your last point, I fully agree in the sense that unless we have serious and sincere dialogue, we're never going to have a chance to have true understanding. And then if we don't have understanding, of course, no trust. So I think that's really the starting point of it all. So we appreciate also your openness and your frankness in the lecture. And I think we've all benefited greatly. So thank you very much. Thank you.